Hi everyone, I'm so happy that you're here to join me for the Way of the Animal podcast. Okay, welcome to today's podcast. It's a really interesting one. Since losing my dog, I kind of wanted to create a focus for myself, and I got very excited about the garden again, and it's kind of getting towards spring, and I think new life and new growth was something that I wanted to focus on. And then within that, we've been talking a lot about creating our own homestead and having a more simple life and self-sufficient life. And then there was it's really funny how I'm just trying to building the journey that we went on with this. And then having the idea of starting where we are with what we've got.
Yeah. So
at this point in time, when we're not scrimping and scraping and really trying to be self-sufficient, it's a really good time to start playing with things and getting to know how to do it, so that, you know, you make a mistake and you waste something or it doesn't work, that it's not, going to be, oh, well, we can't eat for the week, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, what waste, we've got that, we put a load of money in that, we can't do it, sort of that. So it's a perfect time to start with these things. And so I really then felt like this year I want to go back to basics.
Mm-hmm.
I want to stop buying all the things I'm buying and learn how to make them myself. And it started with, and we've done it before, the sourdough.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we did in 2020. I think everyone
had a wee,
did, yeah. Or at least did a little bit of stuff then. And it didn't go great, our sourdough experiment.
Yeah, back then, the actual sourdough culture and starter went great. The utilising it didn't go well. And that was something I struggled with because I don't like waste and the discard and things like that. I didn't like how much I wasn't using it, but was having to maintain it. And it seemed wasteful to me.
Yeah. Totally. So, yeah, we're still in the early stages of our sourdough. We've got Dosif and Sauron, which are our two starters. We've done one each, just so we can play with it more, I think, to begin with.
Yeah.
And my birthday presents, of course, have been in perfect alignment because I asked for them. We've got some sourdough books and things like that. And it's just, learning, like going back to basics. So I've always made bread for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think when we're on the island, you couldn't always get everything you wanted. So I was making a lot of everything that we had. And then since we moved closer to towns, like half an hour away, it's just become that way of, well, I can just go and buy it.
It's so easy to just nip and get it.
The convenience. And I think then you lose your connection to what you're eating.
Definitely. One thing I want to just nip back to with what you said earlier was because we've always talked about this sort of thing and having sort of a homestead type place where we're producing a lot of our own food and, the garden, which we've got a garden now, but all the different things that we're going to do. And like you say, and making more things. And it's weird that it never came to us before, the thought of starting where we are.
Yes.
Like starting, it's like, well, we'll do all that once we're there.
Yeah.
But we could start now.
It's a really good analogy for life, because that's that thing you feel like, oh, I'll be happy when I do that, or I'll do that when I'm there. It's like,
once I've got this thing, then I'll start doing that thing.
Yeah,
it's like, no, start
where you are with
now.
what you have now. So that's really good. Yeah, good point to really emphasize, because that's the most ridiculous thing about it.
You spend well, I don't know if everyone does, but I certainly spend a good part of my life doing that. I'll do that once I've done, once I've got this thing, I'm going to start doing that thing. But actually, you should just start doing that thing now.
So it's been a really good focus for me and sort of a distraction to look at things. And obviously sourdough is interesting because it's a fermented food.
Yeah.
I don't know why food was a hard word there. Fermented food, so it's actually really more beneficial for you. It's got a lower glycemic index when you make your sourdough bread and stuff, and it's actually easier for your gut to digest it as well because of the good bacteria that's in it. Blah blah blah. So that has led me on to fermenting and fermenting foods, and a lot of it is we're still figuring out the best way to store excess produce from the garden that you can't use straight away, and
that's always the trouble with growing a garden at home is you get this glut of food and fruit and everything, vegetables, all the things that you grow. You get this big glut of them all at the same time, and for a while you use them furiously, but you kind of you can't use them fast enough because you produce so much, and it's this very difficult thing to try and make it last through to the next glut.
I feel like in the UK, it's not such a big thing, or it hasn't been such a big thing as the canning. Mm-hmm. And it's on my list. It's a little bit further down because I'm kind of terrified of it. I've seen people do it, and it takes a lot, and it's a big learning curve. So I don't want to overwhelm myself, but I am looking forward to learning how to can as well. But there's a lot of things that you don't have to can, especially like if you ferment or pickle, which is why I'm now getting into that side of things at the moment. It's good. But also, again, the fermenting foods is really good for you as well. So it's, inviting in like just new thoughts and ideas.
It's the other thing with it, because obviously the fermenting helps with them. We're looking at doing it for preservation of food. Yeah. But it does help with the digestion and your gut health and things like that. Yeah. But the other side of the being a little bit more self-sufficient, a bit more producing your own food, is this idea of nutrient-dense food.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that I never really thought of back when I used to think about growing my own food. And even when we've done it before in gardens and things, I never thought about how it differs from food you buy in the supermarket.
Yeah. I'm probably interrupting. You can carry on.
You go.
It's that I think it's what a lot of people aren't aware of is nowadays, they're aware of agricultural problems, but nowadays with agriculture, that idea of producing as much as they can of a uniform thing. And what tends to happen is all land is used, nothing is rested or cared for. Therefore, the soil that a lot of things are planted in are not alive. There's no normal microbial activity. There's no worms because they are putting all the chemicals on in the fertilizer to make things whatever they're growing grow. So the carrots. So if you think about that, the carrots aren't getting the nutrients from a natural soil.
Yep.
They are in basically a dead soil bed.
Yep.
And the nutrients are coming from whatever is applied by the farmer.
That's it.
And I hate to agriculture bash, but this is what is happening.
The reason that it is
it's because agriculture is forced
as much food as cheaply as possible.
Yes.
And that's why everyone wants to go to the supermarket and buy cheap food.
Yeah.
We all want
understandably that. Because of...
Equally, we all want very high quality food, but we don't want to have to pay for high quality food. And agriculture has followed the trends and followed the production and a lot of things after war and things like that.
It was almost like they've been forced, I say we because we've been part of agriculture, like forced into producing things in a way.
As much as you can, as cheap as you can. Yeah. And we've gone down this road of synthetic fertilizers and things and adding things and constantly spraying and doing this to get the maximum yield we can. But like you say, it does mean that the nutrient-rich soil is becoming a growth medium, which then you're producing food. But if you took a carrot, like you were saying before, from now and a carrot
from your own garden, even
your own garden, or from the 1920s, the one from your garden or one from the past would have more nutrients in it than the one now.
Yeah,
and that's just because of the road we've gone down.
Yeah, and that's why it's good for you to produce your own vegetables if you can, because you'll get the appropriate nutrients. And, that's why knowing where you get your fruit and vegetables from is quite handy if you can get it from local producers, and knowing that they're doing it in a way that is not the sort of mass-produced way. That's where you're gonna benefit from it. And I think for us as well, moving to Canada and the American side of things is their rules on what they can and can't do with their animals in production and their fruit and their vegetables are a lot more lax than in the UK and EU.
Definitely, yeah.
And so, like, we can taste that, we can feel that, we know that, and I've never so much wanted to produce all my own food, to the point where we are actually not buying much meat from supermarkets at all.
No, we're very fortunate because the ranch we work on, we get meat from it,
and we know how it's produced.
and
I mean, to go into the bigger envelope of it with agriculture is anywhere that they're doing, oh my God, what's the words that we're doing here? Regenerative farming.
Yeah.
Like that's regenerative is actually, they're talking about regenerating the soils, the life within the ground. And it's not just the soils though, it's the ecosystems, the water, everything, so that it's all back into balance and supporting itself and, creating its own growth in the way that it should do, instead of using synthetic things to create it.
That's it.
It takes longer, it's harder work, it's more expensive in a way because it's cheaper. You don't have to buy fertilizer, but you have to have enough land that you're not completely wrecking it and then just using synthetic things to produce it.
Because fertilizer means that you can produce more off of a smaller area, which is why everyone started doing it, to produce more off of a smaller area. You start using less fertilizer, you need a slightly bigger area, and it's just a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
And to give people some ideas, there are things you can do, especially with livestock. Like you can feed livestock low doses of antibiotics permanently, and they will grow faster, because it just kind of stops all those little niggles and little upsets, little infections or whatever. It stops them from having any slowdown or what we call a check in their growth. So they get bigger, faster. That means you're making more money off of them. But the flip side of that is you're feeding antibiotics at a low level to everything, which promotes antibiotic resistance.
Yeah, and it comes through in us when we eat it, in the food.
That's it. So it's just an unhealthy and
obviously
unsustainable
that's
thing.
Not in the UK and EU, because that has been banned.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that we're very conscious out here, and why we don't really buy meat unless we know it is from a source that isn't in that.
But it works the same. There's growth hormones. There's all these different things you can do to manipulate. And the whole goal of it is to get cheaper food into supermarkets for people. So produce more for less.
Yeah.
But you're sacrificing the quality of the food.
Yeah. Well, it's like, to go into the meat side of it with the Highland cattle in the UK out on the hills and stuff, the meat is actually more rich in 3 and 6, omega-3 and 6, just because of the slow growth and the grazing, the browsing that they're doing. It's actually a really more nutrient-dense,
and more
healthy food for you. And it's hard because there's budgets, for people, we all know about inflation and then the not rising our pay and all this sort of thing. Yeah. So it's hard, and it's also hard for the farmers because they are getting forced into producing in a way that even they're uncomfortable with, a lot of them.
Oh, yeah.
Or unaware of the detrimental effect to their systems.
Well, that's because it's so focused on the yield and making as much as you can for as little as you can. And like you said, it's that thing that everyone is affected by. And we used to be affected by it too. You go to the supermarket, and I remember a very specific one. You used to be able to buy 2 chickens for £5.
Yeah.
And that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That this animal can be produced, packaged, butchered, everything for £2.50. Then it is. It's just ridiculous that that's possible. But when you're standing there and you've got one chicken that's
£10, that's half the size.
£10 or more, half the size, or two for £5,
which you know you can feed your family with for, you know, a
longer,
good, it's just, it is. So that, like, so anyway, it was kind of, it wasn't quite, but I think it gives everyone an idea of the background, actually, to be more conscious and aware of the food that they're intaking.
Definitely.
And in the aging one podcast we did before, I was talking about nourishing our body, and that's, you know, that's something that I want to be more conscious of. And, you know, growing our own fruit and veg, I know how it's been grown. And you, like, I know they talk, but you can really taste the difference, you know.
And I always think about that, tasting the difference. Is that psychological, like a placebo effect, or is it actual? But those things don't really matter anyway.
It's actual. I think it's actual. I think you can't compare.
Because
really.
You get that sort of, you get that good feeling of, oh, this is, you know, we grew this in the garden.
You know, I chop a carrot from the supermarket because sometimes I buy a carrot because I'm out, you know, although I've stored them better this year, so we're good. And it just doesn't smell that strong, you know, it's not as juicy. I chop my carrot, it's like, whoa, there's carrot,
there's
you know,
flavor,
it's just so much life to this carrot, you know?
Yeah, that's it. Whereas you feel the supermarket ones are a bit more watery.
Yeah, they're just diluted. They don't have the flavour.
That's the nutrient density.
Yeah,
that's the
Anyway, I can't remember going.
Well, we're kind of talking about the storing food, the preserving food.
You know, on an offshoot, you know, the amazing thing is you think that your food is, you know, the vegetables, once they're harvested, they're dead. And we obviously had potatoes growing in the garden, and we had loads of potatoes, and we are fortunate enough, we have a dark storage room that has its own heat, so we had it set so it was kept above freezing but cool.
Yeah,
it's completely dark. There is no windows, so there's no light getting in
black.
There. They're also in dark cardboard boxes closed, and the potatoes know it's springtime. They are starting to grow and sprout, and it's just like they're like, how could they? There's no temperature fluctuation because we've kept it the same temperature. There's no light getting in. I'm not going in and out that place all the time. You know, you're lucky if I go in there once a month. And there they are, getting
Sprouting
ready.
Away.
Getting ready for spring. It's like, wow.
Yeah, we do have a bit of a glut of potatoes.
Yeah, potato. We're going to plant. So that's wastage, not doing things right. We're definitely going to plant less.
I mean, on the plus side, our first year here, we bought potatoes, seed potatoes. Yeah. And we've never bought potatoes since.
No.
And we've always had so many potatoes that by the time we're planting, we're having to throw out potatoes. Which is great because effectively a bit of watering, they don't cost us anything to grow. Yes, yeah. So potatoes are great that way. You can have tons of them.
Yeah.
But it comes back to that preserving and that trying to make your food last throughout the year, which obviously we've got freezers, so you can freeze a lot of it, although you need a real big freezer to freeze the amount of stuff that you end up getting.
That's why canning's the answer, because it becomes shelf stable in a cool, you know, you don't want it in a warm place, but in a cool environment, everything stores. And I think that's why it's such a big thing out here. And I do look forward to it, even though I'm intimidated by it.
You see some of the things in canning, and like you see the people that make almost a meal and can it. And then it's like a ready meal.
Well, it's like, we watch homesteading YouTube videos, and they're like, okay, we're going for a long trip today, so I brought canned moose chili, and they've just got it in a jar, and they just heat that up on their wee stove when they're on the road and have a bit of bread with it. And it's just like, you know?
It is that simple ready meal idea. Yeah. And obviously it took all the work to get it there.
But you make a massive batch and it lasts forever, so you can just grab a jar and...
That's it.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing in your freezer.
Yeah.
You can make up a big pot of chili and package it up in some boxes and put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that effort and that preparation and, you know, going through the motions of doing it.
And it's like we were talking about, it's like we were watching the sourdough. I was actually just inspired by this woman who's making sourdough stuff on a YouTube thing, and she's like, sourdough's easy, and she's obviously been doing it for a very long time and is really comfortable with it, because she's just like, just pour out this much discard and then Just put a bit of flour, a bit of water. Oh, it's about the right consistency. Great. And that's our like refresher starter. Whereas we were on the scales, we're like, okay, is that's 30
it's 1
grams.
gram over.
Oh, it's 1 gram. Okay, how much flour? And careful, the water's the right temperature. And, it's just like, and it's just, I know it because I use a bread machine to make I'm going to sneeze in a minute. Sorry about this. Use a bread machine to make bread. And I'm like, and then I can hear it when I'm like, oh, that's too wet.
And throw in a bit more and you don't measure it. Yeah, that's it. You get that way once you do something enough.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that confidence of just being like, it's fine with all these things. Canning, pickling, fermenting, and sourdough. But you know what I do? I need to start where I am with what I have and actually start playing with it. And that's the only way I'm going to learn and be confident with it.
And like you say, that's the wonderful thing of we're real close to town and, full-time employment and things like that. We've got the money to play with this. Because ultimately what would be really nice is to have our own little homestead, work less, spend more time in the garden and producing our own food. But as soon as you switch to that, well, then it's real important that you try and make that food last.
Yeah, like, can you imagine, like, I'll can all this and then, I did that wrong. And
it's
that's
like,
all wasted.
One of the ones we talk about doing is doing tomatoes and making a load of tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Canning it all. And then you don't have to buy cans of tomatoes from the supermarket.
Yeah.
Great. But yeah, like you say, if you mess it up and the whole batch is ruined, well, then not only have you wasted all that time and energy producing it and money producing it, but then you've got to go out and buy it. So,
well, that's it. And I've seen it on the forums where people have canned it wrong and the glasses have exploded with all the tomato. And like once you've got glass in your food you're done, you know?
That's
and I just, that's the kind of the fear, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But you just have to learn and take your time. And something that I've really recognised as well with these things is if I understand the processes that it's going through, and you got me a really good sourdough book that's like, it's massive book. Like, it's a big, heavy book, really comprehensive. I mean, it's got a load of recipes, but the guy that's written it is like, this is what the flour and the water are doing. This is the process they're going through. And when it's like this, it's because of this, and this is how you balance it. And when it's like that, and it's just like, okay, and then on to making the sort of the actual sourdough bread, which hopefully in the next week or so we will get to make.
Yeah.
There's a whole process for that. And it's, understanding why the process is like it is and how you do it like it is that allows you to become comfortable like that woman and just be like, I just put enough flour until it's a shaggy dough, and then I do this, and then I stretch and fold, and I do this, and then here's my amazing loaf of bread.
Yeah.
It's just like,
That's it. I think both you and I have that same thing with learning, that I don't want to know, do this, do that, and you get this. I want to know why I have to do those two things to get that. Or if it's welding rods, you get all these different numbers that go with the welding rods depending on what you're welding. And I don't want someone to tell me, use this one for that. I want to know why. What do those, because if I know why, then like you can adjust, you can manipulate, when things start going wrong, okay, I understand why that's going wrong. It's because of this.
And that's the great thing is like when you're learning these things and you make the mistakes, like I've made pizza bases and the pizza dough, and then I've actually been able to understand why, like sometimes like, I don't know why, but it's turned out like this. And we were talking about just the other day, I don't know why it's chewier. And it's like, oh, well, it's because I was using the higher protein flour that produces chewier. It's just like, oh, okay. And it's just kind of understanding that allows you to make your own adjustments and make stuff up. You're not so constricted by the recipes and like following instructions, because you can see something's happening and then intuitively and informatively know, or words that make sense, why it's happening, and be able to adjust whatever you're doing instead of going, and I see it a lot because I'm looking at all these things. Quite often Facebook and forums are a really good resource because you can see people's mistakes, and people who have more knowledge say, well, this is happening because of this. And, and some of the ones I'm like, even I can see why
Wow.
that's happened. And it's just like, if you don't understand the process and you're just following the instructions, then you can't see why it's happening. And it's like soul destroying, because you're like, I followed the instructions and it failed. And,
and you don't
someone's
understand.
like, yeah, no, that's because you may have followed the instructions, but this has happened.
You missed this. So that happened. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So the other thing we've been doing is making pasta.
Oh, yeah, that was so much fun.
So making pasta, that's an interesting one, because I don't know why, and like cooking programs are a thing, but you see it and it seems to be like making pasta is this lofty, really complex, really fine, delicate art. Now, to be fair, probably making
good pasta. Making good pasta probably is.
I was going to say really high quality, fancy pasta, but because our pasta was good.
Well, and again, we're into this, like, the pasta here is horrendous.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not good pasta. And if being in Europe, I think the pasta being closer to Italy and things like that, they're influenced by the Europeans, and the pasta quality in the UK, just as standard, is way better. So I've actually been buying Italian pasta, which you kind of get here, as it were.
Which is slightly better.
But anyway, back to it. Again, this was, we were watching a YouTube video, and this couple went out to a cabin.
A remote cabin.
In the middle of nowhere.
Ice fishing, no power.
They had no power, no water. They had like their battery pack that made a bit of lights and whatever. But yeah, no power, no running water, no nothing. And she's like, I'm going to make some tagliatelle pasta to go with
they were making,
our
like,
canned meal. And it was just like, okay. And she's just like, here we are. And I was like, well, if she can do it out there in the middle of nowhere, then I can do it here, where I have all the sophistication of, and it's that idea as well that, you need the roller,
pasta machine,
pasta machine to make it really thin sheets, and I expect that probably makes it a little bit better. And there is again with pasta, there's more of a process, so you can make it better, quotation. But I tell you what, you can't get better than your own just simple homemade pasta.
Definitely.
Because we made tagliatelle and we just rolled out as thin as we could.
It was definitely thicker than you would buy, but it tasted great.
It tasted great.
It was
really
fun
good
to have made it ourselves.
And then I made lasagna sheets, which was great because quite often I make slow cooker lasagna, so I actually do it in a round pot.
Yeah.
And all lasagna is square, so I'm trying to break them to get them to fit and all this sort of stuff. Whereas I could make a round lasagna sheet and cut it up and pop it in my thing. So yeah, I was just it's you that sometimes you feel like things are gonna be harder than they are, and it just takes someone. It takes someone showing you, or you understanding the process and realizing that pasta is just flour and eggs.
Yes.
That's all it is. And then it needs rested a bit and rolled out, and there you are.
It's not difficult.
No. So yeah, that was really funny. So here we are on our making things ourselves, because I've always made dog yogurt.
Yeah.
They have yogurt in their food, so I just make yogurt, and you can do that in a slow cook or whatever, but I'm lucky my Ninja thing has a yogurt setting, so it does it all for me, other than I have to have the culture that I add is just other yogurt. The old yogurt gets added in to get it to make yogurt. So you don't have to buy all the cultures to make yogurt. And we're excited to make our own cream cheese. Yeah. Which again,
we've done that before.
It's really easy. It's just milk and a bit of lemon juice to make it curdle and squeeze out, and ta-da.
Yeah, soft cheese is really
easy. Yeah. So yeah, it's just stop relying on what's there and really looking at making our own, and getting to the stage where it's so easy to do, you don't have to think about it, that it's not any harder than buying it from the supermarket. You can make like with the cream cheese, we can make our own flavored ones.
Yeah, you can add whatever you want to it, and that's it. It's really nice. I think one of the things that I always think about with things like this is that we've got, and it's part of modern living. We've got so removed from these things that if you go back long enough, like everyone would know how to do this. It would be,
and it'd be passed on.
Yeah.
Like it'd be passed on knowledge your grandmother would teach you. And there's people that are lucky enough to have that. And I'm really lucky. My mum used to make her own bread. We used to have goat's milk. We used to do, there's like, I had all that as a younger. So I just kind of, I've done it, and then I've come back to it again. And then this is me really fully committing, I think, to coming back to it. And yeah, because you can make your own butter from milk. But
all these things, they're all simple things that have always been done, but our modern life has removed us from
we
these
just
things.
need the convenience because we're actually so busy working to survive within this modern world that finding the time and the energy to make our own food properly can be really tough sometimes.
Oh, definitely. And it is that thing. It's a way up between the time and effort that it takes to make and produce your own food versus the ease of just buying it.
And I think though, like that's the thing about it. It's like making your own pasta is you make more. You make a double batch, and you can dry pasta just like you get from the thing, or you can freeze it. It's just like taking a different perspective and realizing you make 2 loaves of bread.
Yeah.
Then you can slice and freeze one.
Yeah.
There's just that idea of because I always love leftovers.
Yes.
Like, so if I make a chili or something with just 2 of us, but I make a massive amount so that we can freeze some, we can have leftovers the next day, and it's just like the ease of just doing things in bigger batches and having that concentrated effort to do it. Yeah,
that's it. You spend, one day or one period of time doing a big lot of it, and then that saves you time down the road.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think it's just like learning to change your own mindset, like changing my mindset about always thinking that things are going to be too hard or more complicated than I think to do. And like, until you've learned it, it's a bit harder and a bit more complicated, and it's a bit nerve-wracking when you're trying to do it.
There's part of the fun in that.
The journey of discovery in it and learning how to do it, and then like we were just so elated about our pasta, it's ridiculous. It was really so exciting because you just can't get better than that,
And I really like, I have a rough idea where it all comes from, but I really like the self-sufficient, the being able to produce things for yourself, the not reliant on other things and outside inputs. That really appeals to me.
Yeah. So that's the journey, the thing that I'm wanting to learn this year and explore and get better at.
We'll need to in a while do an update on it.
It'd be really interesting to see, especially like when the garden's been a great success.
when it's that frantic time of trying to preserve all this glut of
when
food.
we don't have time to record podcasts just because we're actually like overwhelmed with vegetables.
Yeah, that's it.
Especially courgettes. Courgettes are always the one.
Yeah,
I love courgettes. I put them in everything, but
that's just because when you plant like 2 plants you get 100.
Last year's was so funny. I had 1 plant left and it was looking a bit ropey. So I quickly forced on a few more plants, thinking maybe 1 or 2 will make it. Yeah, they all made it. So did we have 4 plants?
I can't remember. It was ridiculous.
Oh my God. Jesus. And there's that sort of meme of there's the perfect size courgette that day, and you're like, okay, I'll pick that tomorrow. And you go out and it's massive. Yeah. And it's just like, how did that happen overnight? That's literally what happens, plus times a million of them.
Yeah.
So, but I still love courgettes, so.
It's good fun producing your own food.
Yes. Wow, that was really interesting topic and journey we went on there. Thanks for joining me.